This video is about a painting most people have never seen. It's called Faun by Moonlight, created in 1900 by an 18-year-old Belgian artist named Léon Spilliaert. And I want to talk about it because understanding this painting changes the way you look at art entirely. Most people, when they encounter mythological paintings, see symbols: a faun, some goats, a moon. They assume the artist is illustrating a classical story, recreating mythology for decorative or allegorical purposes, and they move on. But that misses what's actually happening in works like this. The best art isn't illustrating external stories, it's projecting internal experience onto symbolic forms. And once you understand that mechanism, you start seeing it everywhere. In Goya, in Munch, in countless works that feel unsettling without you quite knowing why. Let me explain the principle first, then we'll look at the painting. When an artist is experiencing something formless, chronic pain, insomnia, psychological torment, they face a problem. How do you make invisible suffering visible? You can't just paint pain, it has no shape. So artists borrow forms from mythology, religion, cultural symbols. They use those existing figures as vessels for what they're actually feeling. The myth becomes the language through which internal experience can be expressed. That's what Spilliaert did here. He took his own nocturnal existence, shaped by chronic illness and sleepless nights, and projected it onto the image of a faun leading goats across a barren landscape under the moon. Now let's look at what's actually in the painting. At the center stands a faun, half man and half goat, playing a pan flute. His body is caught mid-motion, one leg lifted as if dancing or leaping. Behind him, 4 goats follow. 3 stand watching, 1 is airborne, all 4 feet off the ground, caught up in the movement. The palette is entirely monochromatic, blacks, grays, whites, no warmth. The full moon dominates the sky, casting cold light across an empty, barren field that stretches endlessly into nothingness. Here's the crucial observation. Despite the movement, the faun mid-dance, the goat mid-leap, the entire scene feels profoundly still. The atmosphere is frozen, silent, isolated, motion without life. That contradiction is everything. Before we go deeper into interpretation, you need to understand who created this. Léon Spilliaert was born in 1881 in Ostend, Belgium. By 1900, when he painted this, he was barely out of his teens. But his life was already defined by suffering. He had a chronic stomach ulcer that caused constant pain, and that pain destroyed his sleep. Night after night, he lay awake while the rest of the world slept. So he used those hours. He wandered empty streets. He walked desolate beaches. He sat alone and drew what he saw and felt. The night became his territory, his subject, his entire artistic world. He was also deeply literary. Edgar Allan Poe's tales of madness and isolation resonated with him viscerally. He absorbed the radical philosophy emerging in his time, Nietzsche's challenge to traditional morality, the elevation of individual will over societal constraint. These weren't academic interests. They were frameworks that helped him make sense of his own suffering. What emerged was an artist who painted nocturnal visions, solitary figures in vast empty spaces, everything rendered in stark black and white as if color itself had been drained away. Now back to the faun. In Roman mythology, fauns were nature spirits tied to fertility, music, and wild energy. Their Greek counterparts, satyrs, followed Dionysus and embodied ecstasy, chaos, uncontrolled desire. These creatures represented everything primal and untamed in human nature, the part of us that refuses civilization. Traditionally, fauns appear in 2 ways. Sometimes they're playful tricksters, bringers of joy and vitality. Other times they're darker figures tied to lust and excess. Christianity intensified that darker reading. The goat became the devil's symbol. Fauns became associated with demonic rituals and witches' sabbaths. So when you encounter Spilliaert's faun, the obvious question is, which version is this? And here's where most viewers make their mistake. They try to answer by analyzing symbols in isolation. The goat represents the devil, therefore this is sinister. Or the faun is making music, therefore this is joyful. But meaning in this painting doesn't come from the symbols themselves. It comes from how they're arranged, the atmosphere Spilliaert created around them. Look at what's actually depicted. The faun plays his flute, body in motion. The goats follow, clearly enchanted, one even leaping with apparent excitement. On the surface it reads as playful, even innocent. A mythical musician leading his enchanted audience through the night, but the context contradicts that reading. The landscape is utterly barren, no trees, no shelter, no destination visible. The monochromatic palette drains any warmth or life from the scene. That moon overhead isn't comforting, it's cold, alien, isolating. So where are they going? Why are they moving through this emptiness? The motion suggests purpose, but the environment suggests futility. This is where the darker interpretation emerges. The goat carries demonic associations. A faun leading goats through darkness in a desolate wasteland starts to feel less like a dance and more like a procession towards something unknown and possibly unholy. But Spilliaert deliberately leaves this unresolved. The ambiguity isn't a flaw, it's the point. Because here's what most people miss when they try to decode this painting. They're asking the wrong question. The question isn't, what do these symbols mean? The question is, why did an 18-year-old insomniac in constant physical pain choose to paint this particular image? And once you ask that, everything shifts. That faun isn't a mythological creature, it's Spilliaert himself. Consider his actual circumstances. Chronic pain, sleepless nights, complete isolation while the world moved on without him. His only outlet was creating art. The faun in this painting mirrors that exactly. He's alone in darkness, playing music. The goats follow him, but look at where they're going. Nowhere. An endless barren field with no visible destination. I think those goats represent his internal companions. Not literal demons, but the thoughts, fears, and pain that accompanied him through every sleepless night. They're not attacking or threatening him. They're simply there, following, always present, inescapable. And his music, that's his art. The only thing he has to impose order on the chaos, to create meaning from the darkness, to maintain his grip on sanity. This explains why the scene feels so cold despite all the movement, because that's the actual experience of severe insomnia. You're awake, your mind is active, you're moving through the hours, but you're utterly alone. The world sleeps while you're trapped in your own head, with only your thoughts for company. Every work Spilliaert created reflects this same reality. Solitary figures in empty urban streets, desolate coastlines under vast skies, endless voids. His entire body of work documents what it's like to be awake when the world is unconscious. Faun by Moonlight isn't about mythology at all. It's about the psychological reality of living in that liminal space between day and night, between consciousness and exhaustion, creating art as the only available lifeline. The painting isn't designed to be decoded like a puzzle with one correct answer. It's designed to be experienced. You're supposed to feel the same ambiguity, the same coldness, the same isolation that Spilliaert felt. Is it playful? Is it sinister? Is it lonely? All of those readings are valid. None of them are complete. The painting exists in that suspended state deliberately, because that's the actual texture of the experience it's expressing. And maybe that's why this work has remained largely hidden. It's not in a major museum. It sits in a private collection. It appeared briefly at the Royal Academy in London in 2020, at the Musée d'Orsay in Paris in 2021, then disappeared again from public view. In a way, that seems appropriate. This wasn't created for public consumption. It was created as one young artist's attempt to make visible what his nights felt like. The fact that we can see it now is almost accidental, like discovering someone's private journal. So when you look at Faun by Moonlight, don't try to solve it. Let yourself experience what it presents, the movement and the stillness, the life and the emptiness, the ambiguity between playful and sinister, mythological and personal, ancient symbol and modern psychological reality. That's where the painting actually lives. What do you see when you look at it? Let me know in the comments, and if you want to explore more hidden works like this, subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.